Hello and welcome to the second part of our tutorial. In this part we're going to be creating the same tip calculator we created before. We'll perform the same functionality, take the same inputs and give the same output. But instead of developing in Android platform, we're going to be using the iOS. So we'll still be using Xamarin Studio and still be using C#. The differences between the two are subtle, but enough that it's worth learning both. So in this particular first part, we're going to be setting up Xamarin Studio for iOS development instead of Android development. And it's important to select the platform and get used to working across platforms. Again, it's better to spread your eggs among many baskets than to put them all in one. So in this particular first part, we'll initialize the app and take a look at the layout of Xamarin for iOS development rather than Android, because again, there are some subtle differences. Hello everyone and welcome back. So in the second part of the tutorial, we're going to be creating the same tip calculator we created with the Android platform, but we're going to be using the iOS platform instead. Now there are some similarities and some differences, so both Android and iOS have parts of them that are easy to work with and parts of them that are a little more difficult. So I'll go over the subtle differences between the two. Here I have Xamarin Studio open. And once again, we're going to create a new solution. And it's going to be a single app view. We'll be using C# again. So we'll click Next. Now let's give this a name, Tip Calculator. We'll call this Tip Calculator iOS. Because before we had Tip Calculator Android. And we'll leave that the same. And now for target platforms, we're going to uncheck Android because we're working only in iOS this time. So if we click Next, we have our names. It looks good to me. We have our location where it will be saved. And remember, choose a location that you'll remember. And we'll click Create. And very similar to when we created our tip calculator in Android, we start off with a blank screen and our solution with the list of files up here. So we'll go ahead and open the bolded tab. This is tip calculator-iOS to iOS. And we have our list of files open. So the two main files we'll be working with will be main.storyboard, and this will be where we design the layout. And the second file will be viewcontroller.cs. So let's go ahead and open this one first, just double clicking on it again. Now this will be the part where most of our code goes. So this is very similar to the main file in our tip calculator Android. So again, we have our main function here. This is called view_did_load, and this is where all of the views and all of the buttons and everything else are going to load. So this is where we'll call our functions and we'll write the functions down here. We'll go over the specifics a little later. And the second file we'll open is the main.storyboard. So this is where we design our layout. This is very similar again to the Android tip calculator we designed. So we'll just wait for this to load, and instead of having an Android phone simulator, we'll have an Apple phone simulator. So just while we wait for that to load, again we'll have our toolbox up here. So this will be where we can drag our widgets in. As you can see, it's loading now. The properties will be where we'll modify each widget. And here we have our phone screen. Now this is a little big. I don't want to use the generic one, so we're going to select View As. And we'll just use the iPhone 5S. It's the one I've been working with more. So very similar to the Android one, we have our phone here. It starts off with a random button called Hello World Click Me, which we'll get rid of a little later. But for now, because it's off to the side and I don't really like that, we're going to select Zoom to fit, and it will zoom out a little bit. We can move this around if we want. Just center it there. And again, we have our controls like buttons. We can add labels, sliders, switches, text fields, and we will do that. We'll design the layout in the next video. In this part of our tutorial, we just set up Xamarin Studio for iOS development. Very similar to Android development, but again with subtle differences. So we did that by first creating our app, giving it a name, and exploring the files, as well as taking a look at the layout of the file system for iOS versus Android development. So by now you should be able to start creating an app in iOS, as in you should be able to create one, give it a name and a location, and become a little familiar with the layout and the differences between designing in iOS and in Android.